AstraZeneca, Oxford University's vaccine manufacturer, suspends leading COVID-19 vaccine trials after participants' illness. What was the illness? We go to Business Times. Business Times asks, it's transverse myelitis. They decide to start talking about transverse myelitis because now the media is tasked with having to downplay and explain vaccine injury. Business Times writes, although the reaction was a routine hiccup that usually occurs during clinical trials, the company did not divulge any further details on the nature of the illness in the study participant. So now we have transverse myelitis.
Whoa. Let's put that back up. I want this to sink in for people again. Look at what they're saying. Although the reaction was a routine hiccup that usually occurs during clinical trials. Really? I don't think people knew that. I didn't think that people know that. Oh, you mean that they routinely develop a neurological disorder that can lead to paralysis throughout the body? I mean, I guess that's routine. Oh, and it's just a hiccup? I mean, right there points to exactly what my issue has been with the reporting around vaccines from the beginning. This is not routine. Someone losing feeling in their hands and feet and potentially having a swelling in their spinal cord is not routine. We cannot look at this as routine, but that's what media does, right? Oh, it's just simply a hiccup. Someone's life is destroyed forever, but, you know, they'll be fine. And forget them. It's the greater good. It's really incredible. So what have they looked at? I guess this has been in the news, right? It's a big montage on this. Let's take out how the news has been talking about this.
Pausing its global trials of a coronavirus vaccine.
Breaking news on a possible COVID vaccine. Testing has been paused
On hold worldwide.
Drug maker AstraZeneca is halting its phase 3 trial of a possible COVID-19 vaccine after one participant came down with an unexplained illness.
Healthy volunteer walked in healthy, now has a significant problem. They've got to investigate that.
It's not exactly known what happened to the patient or if it's even linked to the vaccine.
This is the first report of a serious safety issue for a vaccine that is in late-stage trials.
We don't have a sense from AstraZeneca how long this pause will last, how much of a concern it is for them.
The person who has the adverse effect, they need to see if this person recovers.
There's so many questions about what this event is, whether it was caused by the vaccine, and what impact it'll have on this trial and potentially other trials. Right now, those are all question marks.
And this just underscores the importance of widespread human testing in phase 3 trials before any vaccine goes to market.
There's a lot to this story, but before we go any further, I want to say that one of the things why I started our nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network, was so that we could investigate safety and the safety of vaccines. This is the work that we've been doing. And so when I look at this story, it's not lost on me. I mean, they're going to make the world think, oh, transverse myelitis was this really weird thing. It was, as though somehow someone broke out in leprosy from the vaccine. Odds are it's not caused by the vaccine. And you know for a fact, I tweeted this headline out as soon as it happened. I basically said, it will be 1 week before they are saying, oh, nature did this, not the vaccine, couldn't possibly be the monkey cold virus, adenovirus we're using, or the gene that we're putting inside of that vector to go and try and mutate the genes in your body. That couldn't have anything to do with why you're having an autoimmune neurological disaster experience. But I really want to point out, just so people, because you listen to the news and we got to find out if the vaccine had anything to do with this. We got to see, where this comes from. We know viruses can cause this issue. Really? Because if you look at vaccine inserts, it's not just viruses. Let me just give you a taste of what we already know. This isn't rare. Look at this. This is the Engerex hepatitis B vaccine. Nervous system disorders, transverse myelitis is listed. Now remember, they only list these in these inserts if they believe there is a potential causal relationship. Not anecdotal, it has to be causal to make it onto these sheets. Hepatitis B, this is the Recombivavax. Possible disorders, side effects, post-marketing experience, transverse myelitis. Twinrix, hepatitis A and B. Possible side effects, adverse reactions, transverse myelitis. Gardasil, transverse myelitis. Fluzone, high-dose quadrivalent flu vaccine, transverse myelitis in the nervous system disorder commonly reported. Afluria, quadrivalent, transverse myelitis. I can just run through them really quick. Measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Transverse myelitis has been experienced by people that got this vaccine. Again, Menactra, meningococcal, transverse myelitis. You get the idea here, people? This isn't a rare event. This isn't like, oh my God, this really strange thing happened, you know, and what they're going to try and tell you is this was going to naturally occur in this person. Now remember that when we do these trials, these are the healthiest people we can find. They have to be able to prove that they drink very little alcohol. They are on no drugs or medications for any illnesses that we know of. They, you know, they haven't had like things like more than 4 sexual partners in their entire lives. These are superheroes. This is like the Justice League that are in these trials. So when Superman gets transverse myelitis or Wonder Woman gets transverse myelitis, you really need to stop for a second and say, hold on. Why would that happen? They're going to try and tell us that it was just a natural occurrence, that this person just spontaneously was going to combust into transverse myelitis, whether they were in the trial or not. Am I right, Jeffrey? Is that where this story's going?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another data point to that, too. The Department of Justice, it releases a report. It just released a report of the last 6 months of vaccine injury claims that have been compensated through the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. And in that release, they showed that mostly from the flu vaccine, that transverse myelitis on this chart here, it's only 5, but 8 total cases in the last 6 months have been compensated for transverse myelitis. So it's not only in the inserts, it's being compensated actively in vaccine court.
And just for everyone that's questioning what is transverse myelitis, very simply put, it's swelling in the spinal cord that can lead to temporary paralysis in different parts of the body. It can also lead to permanent lifelong paralysis. So a very, very serious deal. Well, where's this story going? I mean, we saw that it got paused. What are they saying now?
So Stat News got out front of this story with their headline, and they said COVID-19 vaccine trial participant had serious neurological symptoms but could be discharged today, AstraZeneca CEO says. So in this article, there's a quote. It says, Pascal Seurat, he's the CEO of AstraZeneca, also confirmed that the clinical trial was halted once previously in July after a participant experienced neurological symptoms. Upon further examination, that participant was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, deemed to be unrelated to the COVID-19 vaccine treatment, he said. So the story gets deeper here. What happened was there was an already planned investors call, a private investors call that JP Morgan had set up. And that was about a day after the transverse myelitis was reported throughout all of the media. And it was revealed in there that, okay, well, we actually paused it in July, says AstraZeneca's CEO, because there was an MS situation, but that was fine. No transparency, nothing in the public, despite any type of pledge that they gave. There was no reporting on it whatsoever. So that one we're lost on. We don't really have any information on that. But this is, again, to private investors. After that, this is when the media reporting starts really picking up, because now we're looking at kind of like a damage control situation. So FDA senior officials come out. They try to put their stake in the ground. FDA career executives were following the science to protect public health in a pandemic. They said, we're committed to making decisions guided by the best evidence. Our approach has been and must remain the gold standard that all can rely upon. And then we get to the feds. Feds are very concerned. The headline that was just up there, this is the article that really slams it out of the park. Feds very concerned about AstraZeneca vaccine side effect. Now, side effects, plural it should be. And it says sometimes an underlying medical condition is, quote, unmasked by a person's immune response to the vaccine, leading to illness, as happened with the MS patient. In that case, the trial might be continued without fear because the illness was not specific to the vaccine.
I mean, how do they, this is the thing, folks, just use your common sense. How do they figure that out? How do they know? They're going to say the same thing about the transverse myelitis because there's no way to really determine. Did it happen in the placebo group? Oh, wait a minute. AstraZeneca doesn't have a saline placebo group. How convenient, right? How convenient so that we can't say, hey, look, the 15,000 people in the saline placebo group, no one got MS, nobody got transverse myelitis. That's why they don't want placebo groups. That's why we passed that petition. We petitioned the FDA. For anyone joining us right now, we submitted a petition demanding that a saline placebo be used for any vaccine that's going to be approved in the United States of America, and they did it. 3 or 4 days after we made that request, we saw a shift in the protocol for phase 3 trials. We are actually having an effect on the FDA, on the CDC now. Why? Because we've already won lawsuits against them. Lawsuits against the National Institute of Health, FDA, CDC, and Health and Human Services. So guess what? There they are. This is what the work that we've been doing. Aside from running this television show, we are suing government agencies for lying, for cheating, for hiding, for not being transparent about what's going on. And now they're having to listen to us because they don't want us to win any more lawsuits, especially not when the entire world is watching these trials under a microscope. Now, Jeffrey, how common is transverse myelitis? What is it that we're supposed to understand about this?
Let's look at some of the reporting. We'll take it directly from the reporting. The Daily Beast says it's 1 in 250,000. It says neurologists who study illnesses like transverse myelitis say they are rare, occurring at a rate of perhaps 1 in 250,000 people, and strike most often as a result of the body's immune response to the virus. Less frequently, such episodes have also been linked to vaccines. Now, the reporting says that the British Oxford trials enrolled more than 12,000 participants. So now we have a ballpark number. So here we are. We have a rate of in the general population of 1 in 250,000, and now we have a number of 1 in 12,000 or around there. So doing the numbers on that, we're looking at basically a 1,600 to a 2,100% increase in the normal background risk for transverse myelitis in this trial.
Meaning if you just essentially look at the world as your placebo group and say your average person has a risk of 1 in 250,000, your average participant in this trial is 1 in 12,000, that is a significantly higher risk from the vaccine than from naturally occurring events. Now, they could argue, I suppose, and I'm sure they're going to, that this was a naturally occurring event, and it was just by happenstance that one of the 12,000 got the, the affliction of transverse myelitis. But I'm also, I'm just putting this out there. There's hearing a lot of murmurs behind the scenes saying that they believe there was another transverse myelitis case inside of these trials. We're looking into that. Boy, is that going to be troubling. It's troubling enough that not only did you have transverse myelitis, you had MS, but if they have another case like this, and here's what, are they going to stop this trial? It seems to me you better just stop everything until you can really drill down and figure out what's going on here. Where is this going?
Yeah, so, 4 days later, AstraZeneca resumed the trial. This was in Reuters. So it is restarted. And again, 4 days. Now, the NIH says the cause of transverse myelitis is not completely known. So apparently this crack team of independent safety researchers found out in 4 days that, it wasn't caused by the vaccine. So that's good. But in the U.S., it's still paused. So FDA Commissioner Hahn had to come out and in an article from, I believe this was USA Today, U.S. FDA's Commissioner Hahn plans significant work with AstraZeneca in COVID-19 trial inquiry. And this is a shocking statement. He says, we don't have all facts, so we don't know the causation per se of this, but we really need to look into it. Now, this is several days later that they still don't have all the facts. The investors had some of the facts, but the FDA's commissioner doesn't have all the facts to restart the trial in the U.S. What happened to the pledge? What happened to transparency? I thought this was the cornerstone of Big Pharma and AstraZeneca, which was on that pledge.
And to be very clear, it's not like, it's Oxford and this is UK's vaccine and they can do what they want. This is the UK's problem. My understanding is, if I remember correctly, we've already sunk over $1 billion into the development of this vaccine. I think we're already making, 100 million vials of this vaccine as we speak in case it's ready to go. Add this to the fact that, remember, we were reporting months ago that in the phase, was it 1 or 2 trials, that when the macaque monkeys were tested and they were given the challenge study, this proved to not be efficacious at all. All of the monkeys got sick again after having had the vaccine. So all the way back then, we were asking, why are they going forward with a phase 3 trial when the vaccine doesn't even work? It didn't even stop transmission. All the monkeys got sick. The vaccine didn't protect them. And now we have people getting serious injuries, neurological disorders like multiple sclerosis and transverse myelitis. Let me let me couch that. We don't have definitive proof. What we know is this is happening at the same time as the trials amongst the healthiest people they could find in a study that has no decent, real saline placebo group. It's really shocking. But by the way, Jeffrey, I think this is why Dr. Paul Offit, who made the rotavirus vaccine, and Dr. Peter Hotez have been screaming from the mountaintops. This was their greatest fear, wasn't it? Their greatest fear was that to be as bold as to say, we are going to create this vaccine in the next 6 months, a vaccine that's been attempted for over 20 years and failed the entire time, that we will suddenly figure out all of our problems in 6 months. I think Offit and these people that have fought to keep that brainwashing alive, that vaccines are safe and effective no matter how they're made or by who they're made. Don't worry, the science is always sound. They knew damn well if you watch the sausage being made under a microscope, you would see that these events, as that article said, are happening. These are regular events in trials. People really get really sick. And the pharmaceutical industry that stands to make billions of dollars does their own safety research. They're the ones that go in and say, hey, we looked at it and we found that our product was not responsible. Therefore, we're moving forward. It will go through the FDA. The FDA will buy that. They'll put it on the market. And then all of a sudden, the company will start making billions of dollars. And we will all forget and that people got injured. And then there'll be a vaccine court that's starting to pick up people. Most people's doctors will be saying, I know you're paralyzed right now, but all of my science says, you know, they're telling me that transverse myelitis is not a side effect of the COVID-19 vaccine. This is how this game is played. This is the first time it's being played out in the public eye. So in many ways, I think this is a beautiful thing. This is transparency, whether they like it or not. There's nothing they can do about it.
And we have a captive public who's been taught from the media and from the medical community that the science has been settled and vaccines are safe. And now what's happening with these trials, with the injury being reported, the Johnson & Johnson trials are seeing people jump ship. So this is out of Spain. Some volunteers quit J&J COVID-19 trial in Spain after AstraZeneca scare investigator. So in the article, it says many have called to ask us some more detail about the risk of the vaccine, whether what happened with the vaccine had anything to do with the one we are studying. These types of questions, Borobia said, he did not say how many people had dropped out. There would be a good number to check out. And then we have the New York Times jumping in, more damage control. Now that these media outlets have to catch up, and it's interesting to watch. Vaccine makers keep safety details quiet, alarming scientists. Researchers say drug companies need to be more transparent. And it says the company still has, this is AstraZeneca, still has not given any detail about the patient's condition, nor has it released a transcript of Mr. Sorat's remarks to investors. Again, a still closed door, but they pledge, they promise. And it goes on, none of the 3 companies with coronavirus vaccines in advanced clinical trials in the United States have made public the protocols and statistical analysis plans for those trials. So again, so much for transparency. Welcome to the party, New York Times.
Welcome to the party. You know, and I've told this story just when I was in Kansas. We're going to talk about the incredible rally I was at earlier this week. But I was in a really intense interview with a writer from the New York Times just over a month or so ago, who was grilling me, how could I not say that I was going to take the COVID-19 vaccine when it was ready. I was explaining myself that the science is really would have to prove out. There's no way that in the next 6 months it can prove to be safe. But I said something to this reporter. At a certain point, she said, well, what do you have to say for yourselves that, you know, the consensus of scientists, millions of scientists or whatever, 99% of scientists around the world say that vaccines are safe and effective, yet you stand opposed to them. Who do you think you are? I said, I'm someone who actually reads studies, which you clearly do not do. I said this to her on the phone. I said, you see, the only difference between you and I as a reporter is that when an expert, one of those 99% you're quoting to me, when an expert says to me, vaccines are safe and effective, or this vaccine, MMR or DTaP, doesn't cause autism, I say, please provide me with the science that has led you to that conclusion. I'll read it right now. And I said, that's the difference. See, you take the expert opinion and your job is done. You get to go write your paper. New York Times doesn't ask you any more questions. The expert said, so therefore it must be. I imagine Woodward and Bernstein should have stopped at Nixon said, so therefore he must be right, because that's what we're talking about. Your experts are all getting funded by the pharmaceutical industry that's making these products. So I said to her, I know for a fact you have never read the studies. And she said, wow, that's awfully presumptive of you, Mr. Big Tree, to say that, that I've never read the studies. There's no way for you to know that. I say, oh, no, there is. You know how I know? Because if you actually read these studies, and my nonprofit has read them all, then you would be on my side. And so we went back and forth in this, what was probably about a 1-hour interview, and she finally admitted to me at a certain point, she's like, well, I will admit this, you're right. I haven't read the studies. And I said, you didn't have to tell me that. I mean what I'm saying. I know this to be true. So welcome. New York Times, after, multiple interviews I've done with you, coming after me, attacking me for asking valid questions like, where is the transparency in vaccine data? Where's the data? Where's the science? Where are the studies? How many kids do you think were involved in that childhood vaccine trial before, you started injecting it into your children? So once again, CNN, New York Times, welcome to the party. Jeffrey, this is fantastic. I mean, it's unfortunate people have to be injured to learn what you and I already know from multiple investigations, but the world is really changing. I think we are evolving. We're waking up. In many ways, this feels like a dream come true for the work that we've been doing here on the High Wire.
Yeah, it's magnifying glass. The world is putting a magnifying glass on AstraZeneca, on Johnson & Johnson, on Pfizer, on Moderna, and these trials are under more scrutiny than any trial perhaps in the history of the world. So stay tuned, because there's going to be some fireworks, I really have a feeling.
If you like that clip, then be sure to check out our live broadcast of the High Wire every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. You can watch it on Facebook, iTunes, and Twitter. We'll see you there.